Good
while I
afternoon.
So I
I
am
am
getting my
my
screen
green
in
light.
Shanice.
And
place.
welcome to Justine Peterson Presents Ignite Illinois. Today we are going over managing payroll and employee benefits with Ann. Ann, you can take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good day. We're going to start talking about payroll. Go ahead, Yolanda. Okay, today's session is payroll essentials, compliance, tax withholding, and efficiency. Next slide, please. Okay, the agenda for today, we're going to learn the essentials of payroll processing, understand tax withholding and employee benefits, explore compliance with labor laws, and discover how automation boosts efficiency. And we also gonna have a little tag team today. Nate, he's gonna jump in every now and then. So
Yes, yeah.
you can go next, Yolanda. Okay. Payroll processing essentials. Everybody wants to know when I'm gonna get paid, how much I'm gonna get paid, how much is this and that. When can I get a payroll schedule? Because their life depend on their paychecks. So when we're doing payroll processing, we need to know that we're collecting time and attendance, um, calculating gross pay, and applying the correct uh, deductions, and then issue a check with the net pay on it. One of the things with doing taxes, I've been doing this with people, if they bring in their paychecks, kind of going over, because people really don't look at paychecks they until they need them, and what they're doing is they or not sure if the correct taxes are being taken out and all of that. So I sat down with a couple of my clients and I was like, well, this what you're doing wrong. So a lot of people, we do the W-4s when we first start the job and we never go back and look at it again. And everybody thinks it's just automatic that they're going to take out the right taxes and everything. Sometimes the laws change, so people need to really start looking at their paychecks. Next slide, Yolanda. Some of the payroll challenges is that companies may have is you might have manual errors, and I'm a really talk on that when I do payroll for my cousin's restaurant, and this past last paycheck and this paycheck I kind of was doing it late at night, and I'm like, let me get this in, and yeah, we overpaid somebody, but um I'm trying to get him to go to something where it's automatically calculating the pay periods and all of that. Um, Miss deadlines. Oh, you don't want to miss a deadline, especially on paying your employees or filing the appropriate tax forms that you need to. Then we also have complex deductions. You may have where people might have some garnishments. You got to make sure that you're doing the correct deductions on garnishments, because that is also a problem that'll be a problem from you and the employee. multiple pay schedules. It's good to set one pay scale and everybody is on the same page. Everybody's getting paid at the same time, and that also goes into cash flow. We talked about cash flow earlier in the series. So you have to know when the money is coming in and making sure that you have enough to pay the employees. So we may have some disgruntled employees if they don't get their paycheck on Fridays. Next. Okay. Tax withholding basis. You just heard me talk about a W-4. When you fill it out, when you first go to work, you're filling out a W-4 for the federal, the state, and you also have to fill out what's called the I-9. That's for the federal. And the I-9 will make sure that you're legal to work in the United States. So with the I-9, you have to make sure that you have your social security card, a driver's license, something to say that you are eligible to work in the United States. W-4. People, when I see people's W-2, the W-4 is when you first fill out for the job. The W-2 is the annual form that you get saying how much you made, how much was taken out for federal taxes, Social Security, and Medicare and state taxes. So you um you have to make sure that you are filing your or at least looking at your W-4 on an annual basis. They don't change the form often, and I think we just had a change in 2020. Am I correct, Nate? 2020?
Yes, we sure did.
Okay.
2020.
Yeah, they had a change in the form, and everybody was thinking, you know how we get them bonus checks, and I'm gonna just take my exemptions up to 9 so I can get all of my money. Well, they changed that. There's no more exemptions on the W-4 form. So you have to really know if your filing status is single, married filing separately, married filing jointly, all of that. With the new form, I just tell people put your filing status on there, put your name, your information, your social, your filing status, sign the form and turn it back in. Because there's a worksheet on there. And if you're not familiar with all of that information, um, you could still be in a tax pickle because it's not filled out right or correctly.
And mention also about the filing and then people playing around with going exempt.
Right. Yes, there is a checkbox on there that say tax exempt. Tax exempt means that they're not going to take out any taxes. So when it's time to get that W-2 form and box 2 is blank, that's the first thing I look at when I'm doing taxes. I'm like, oh, you in trouble. Because they was like, oh, or another thing, they'll go back and they'll change it to tax exempt and forget to go back and change it. So that's going to give you a tax bill. Anybody got questions about that one?
Also for employees too. You know, if you have employees working for you and they say, oh, I want to go exempt because this bonus check, I don't want it to get hit with taxes. Well, you really, you know, you as an employer, you have to be cautious and mindful of that because employers could be on the hook as well if we don't properly assess whether or not someone is even eligible to go exempt.
Any questions on that tax exempt? Nobody on the call does that. Great. So then next we talk about pre-tax and post-tax deductions. So pre-tax deductions meaning that they are not they're not taxed. One of the things when people are working for a company and they have a 401k, one of the things they're asked, do you want pre-tax or post-tax? So Pre-tax, if you have it taken out pre-tax, and I should have put up a picture of a W-2 form. You in box 1, box 3, and box 5. If you don't have any deductions or anything, your box 1, your box 3, and your box 5, those wages are going to be the same. But when you do pre-tax like 401k, you have your box 1 to be different than your box 3 and your box 5. But in box 12, you'll have something with a code of D, which means like a tax deferred 401k plan or something like that. So those two, because that's how you know if you're having deferred payments or pre-tax wages, and those wages will not get taxed until you retire and stuff like that. And you'll get a different form. Instead of W-2, you'll get a 1099-R. And so it's a difference. You have to watch these different forms that you'll have. Post-tax, you can also have taxes taken out the 401k while you're working, which means you're already been paid taxes on that. And your person will yes, Deja, your person at the payroll office, they'll know if you have pre and post taxes. Deja is asking, is pre-tax 401k the same as Roth 401k? Yes, they're both instrument for retirement savings. But if you have a 401k with the employer, they will ask you, do you want to do pre-tax or post-tax? Pre-tax means that you're not paying taxes on the full amount that you're having with you're making during the time you're employed. Next slide. Okay, here's the big thing. Your filing and your deadlines. You have to do monthly, quarterly, and annual filing. And I think I talked about this in one of my previous webinars. Again, monthly we do the government will decide if you make a certain amount, then they want you to send in your withholding. Again, you're the middleman. They want you to send in your monthly. They want you to send in what you withheld from the employees' payments and everything, and that will determine how much you make as a company, or how large your payroll will determine if you have to send the stuff in on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. Normally when you first start out, they want you to send in stuff on the annual basis. Then they may move you to a quarterly as your income goes up, because again, you are that middleman and they want that money. They want you to deposit the taxes on time, and they want you need to meet the deadline so you can avoid any IRS and state penalties. Now, depositing on time. Let me okay, I'll go get to that later. But depositing on time, they will either want you to go to I always get this messed up, it's the electronic filing, ESTPS. And they give me the correct initials.
Yes, EFTPS. You got it.
Okay. That is a system where they have you set up, and you can deposit your payments that you have withheld from your employees' checks. And on that, I kind of tell people, so things won't be so messy, you should have a regular business account and then also a payroll account. Because when you're doing the payroll, and every day when you're doing the payroll, you should actually deposit into your payroll account what you have to pay in gross payments, and your portion, which is the employer's portion of Medicare and Social Security. So if you put everything over into one account, it's much easier when it's time to pay the taxes because that is already having everything taken out. Again, in the federal is the EPTS system, and then in Illinois, it's called the My Tax Illinois. Again, when it's time to do those monthly, quarterly, or annual filings, if that money is sitting in a separate payroll account, you don't have to worry about, oh, I got to go back and figure out how much I need to get over there. And that's when we talked about cash flow. Again, that's why all of these seminars or webinars have been important because they build up on helping you to be successful in your business. In the IRS and the state penalties, you do not want to get into that because they'll get you with a penalty on not filing on time. They charge the interest. The interest is ridiculous. Um, and they want their money. They're having you to be the middleman so that they can get their money. Anybody got questions? We're quiet today. Next slide, Yolanda. Employee benefits and payrolls. Health insurance. How many of us have employees now that they are giving actually health insurance, retirement, and PTO? No one has employees right now. So this is good. Health insurance, it's not that employers are required to provide health insurance, but that's one of the benefits. And I'll tell anybody, my thing was when I worked for the city of East St. Louis, and I'm say they would get on my nerves. I would tell them I'm only here for the health insurance and the pension. So those were two of the best benefits that I had working with that job. Because health insurance, it can really take uh, your company down, your employee down, because we need health insurance, and our health insurance in the United States, our system needs an overhaul. Retirement, it's not like it used to be. When I first started working at the phone company, we had a pension plan and we were able to put into the 401k. A lot of companies they got rid of their pension plans, and now you're just doing they're doing the 401k, and you have to be uh, your own uh, person to do retirements and think of how you want to invest and stuff like that. PTO, the beginning of this year, 2025, the state of Illinois had a PTO policy where part-time, full-time, you're supposed to give people 5 days off. And that's a policy. And if anybody, I can get the information to Yolanda about that policy, but it is actually something where you're supposed to do it for your part-time people also. Next slide, Yolanda. Labor law compliance. We have the Department of Labor here that oversees a lot of this. They want to make sure you're in compliance. We have the FLSA, which is the Fair Labor Standard Act. It talks about minimum wage, overtime, how you should record keep, and how the youth employment standards. Um, you have to make sure that you are in compliance with all of these labor laws. The ACA, which is the Affordable Care Act, everybody want to call that the Obama ACA, but it actually is the ACA. It covers healthcare rules. How many of us know that the government is shut down?
I do.
Can
Yeah,
we
that's
put some in
crazy work
chat?
right there.
Yes. So one of the things that they're, I want to say, fighting about is the subsidiaries that are provided through this ACA Act. Um, and uh, that could that those are some of the things that people don't really think about. um oh, they just fighting and this and that, but those subsidiaries are things that are helping it make healthcare affordable for some people. Then we have our state laws where we have minimum wage, PTO again, and then we have employer versus, hold on a second. Mhm. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Right, right. Yeah. Then we have the employee versus the contractor classification. I think I talked about this previously. There's how you classify a person as being an employee versus contractor. The gist of it is, an employee, you direct everything, their hours, the duties that they're gonna do, and all of that. On a contractor, you can have a contractor work for you, and that contractor builds their own schedule. They provide you with an invoice and all of that. So you have to make sure that you're classifying the people as an employee or as a contractor. Don, you have something you would like to say on that part?
Um, the the audit. So there's an audit,
Hmm.
and I don't know if you want to touch on that, but it's very important to make sure you know ahead of time if you, by Department of Labor standards, if you have an employee or a contractor or 1099 working for you, because if you make a mistake, you will ultimately have to come back and offset that compensation, Social Security, Medicare, all that stuff will have to be settled up as a payment. And that audit could happen years down the road. So you could actually be hit with uh, years worth of, liabilities that would be owed.
Okay, John, you work in the construction business, right?
Yeah, I still am. Yes.
Okay, so here's one of the things. So I'm gonna just say a plumber. Don could have a person that say, "We're building a house. I'm gonna have a plumber come in." He could have a plumber that's on his employee of his company, or he could have a plumber that he contracts with. So he may build out a schedule saying, this employee is going to be my plumber. Or he may build out a schedule that says, we're getting to the point where we're building in all of the water lines. We're going to contract that out to someone. So it's clearly defined that his plumber as an employee will be there working every day, because he may be doing some prep stuff, or in his schedule he may say, okay, this contractor is going to come in a month, and he's going to do everything. So, and it's not like he has to be there overseeing and stuff like that. The contractor is going to do their part, and then they're going to invoice Don.
And real life experience, the last audit I was subject to, and I think I mentioned this on a prior session, involved a landscaper, or actually a mowing company that also does landscaping, but they actually come out and do a mowing every 10 days, every 2 weeks. And then also the cleaning staff, the company that comes in and does the cleaning. So they were actually selected for the audit to verify or identify whether those individuals actually worked for me on a regular daily basis and should have been a W-2 employee, or whether they set their own schedule, had their own equipment under their own directive, and actually worked for not only me but others, and then I properly classified them as 1099.
Again, like Don said, that audit, when they come, they're coming for everything. So make sure that you have your employee versus contractor classification together. Okay, Yolanda, next slide. Here are some of the posters. I know it's kind of small, but here's some of the posters that you need to have posted in your workplace. On these posters, like with the Illinois poster, there's a lot of companies out there that'll try to sell you these posters, but if you go to the Illinois Department of Labor, they have a poster that you can print out and laminate and just make sure it's in a spot where your employees are able to see it, like in a break room, or if you have an office or something, just make sure that they're able to see it. On there, it lists the uh, minimum wage. In Illinois, the minimum wage now is $15 an hour. So all of this information should be visible to the employees. Next slide. Stay in compliance. I am going to let Nate take over right here.
All right, thanks, Ann. That's really good so far. So I love how Don and Ann both touch on the audit piece for compliance. You know, the contractor versus W-2, that's probably one of the biggest pieces that people miss and they misclassify. So the IRS has on their website regulations for standardized behavioral control, and some of the things that Don's already mentioned, such as whether you control the workplace, the time, the hours, the equipment they use, et cetera, et cetera. So oftentimes you'll be misclassifying and you won't even know it until you look at the regulations. So the audit piece is important to make sure that all your documentation that you have in place, if you've got contractors and they're providing invoices, that you have those invoices saved, and so that you're in compliance with these audits do come. The next piece is what we're talking about, training your payroll staff. As Ann said earlier, payroll has to be 100% correct 100% of the time. And so with that being said, you have you know, if you've got folks, you know, in-house that you're have for payroll, I don't think anybody on the call actually has that right now, but eventually if you expand it, you do, you know, to make sure that they have the right tools and training in place to properly assess that and to do the payroll correctly. There's so many different parts of payroll, and I would say for most business owners, outsourcing it is probably the best route to go, especially if you're small business owners, whether you're using a source like an ADP or an Intuit, or, you know, like Ian does as well. You know, just trusting the professionals for that piece there is going to save you a lot of headaches as well. And then the next piece, really talking about payroll records, storing all your payroll records, keeping them. You know, there's a minimum period of 3 years. I would say 7 years, and is probably a good number, right?
Yes.
And of course, yes. And then if there's a suspicion of fraud, there's really no statute of limitations. So keep those records. I just had an audit that I was helping with a client in Illinois. They went back 3 years, and this client only had 4 employees, and it was such a headache because they didn't have all the documentation, they didn't have all the invoices, and we ended up working it out with the auditor to where it was very simplified. But you can see how just the retention of those records can be a lifesaver for you and your company. The more records that you can retain, the more any type of audit that comes in compliance questioning, the auditor is going to look at you and say, okay, well, you know, you've got most of your documentation in place. You've been good with your compliance, as opposed to the opposite, where you say, well, you know what, I haven't kept any records. You'd be scrutinized more generally, and then you may have larger fines. So that's important. And then the last piece of this slide is when you're talking about kind of what I already discussed briefly, partnering with your legal and payroll experts. You know, you can use a nationwide firm such as like an ADP. You can use local folks like Ian. And really, I think it's so important to have the conversation, sit down, go over all of your payroll needs, as well as the pieces that you may not know about, such as, do you pay all my taxes, or do I have to still go in and make those payments, like the EFTPS piece? Some have systems like, if you use QuickBooks payroll, they'll automatically withhold that amount and send it right to the IRS. At the same time, you've got to make sure you've got enough money in your bank account to cover the difference when the money does come out. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is the payroll company may suspend you, and they may even terminate your agreement with them because you were late on making those payments. So it's so important to stay in compliance and keep the money together. Sometimes some clients, they keep a separate account. They have an operating account, they have a payroll account, and then they move money to their payroll account from their operating account, the entire amount, instead of only moving the amount that is the minimum until their payroll taxes are due and using that for cash flow. Because we know that can end up sideways pretty quickly if you overextend yourself and you're using your payroll money that's supposed to go to cover the FICA and the withholding for operating costs, when in fact it should be going to the IRS. And when it is time for it to come out, you don't have it, and you end up in a jam.
This is Don. I'd like to add another quick story of a situation that when I first became a business owner, I didn't really read into it too much because I kind of heard the term when I worked for the university. But anyway, there was a term used called comp time. And at the time I had a secretary, and her husband came to work for us. And anyway, through the process, there were a few weeks here and there where he had asked, I got to take off or whatever. Can I still get paid for a full week this week? And then I'll just make that time up next week. And we never really had a problem about that until it came time for an audit. And during the audit, it was made very clear that you cannot have an arrangement, comp time arrangement with an employee where you maybe fully compensate them for 1 week, even though they may not work all those hours, and then they make up those hours on another week. When those hours exceed 40 hours, what triggered in our situation is that even though it was an understanding and arrangement that I had with the employee, or my secretary had set up, and I didn't think much into it, the weeks that he did work over 40 hours, we actually had to go back and pay him time and a half. So even though we advanced him funds at his request and called it a comp time, and he agreed that he would just make those hours up later, if he made those hours up later and it happened to be a week where he exceeded 40 hours a week, we were required to go in and pay him time and a half on those hours, the extra half time.
That's a great story, and that's so important. You think you're helping someone out, and then you end up with a greater burden on you for cost because of simply the way it was classified. So if it perhaps classified as an employee advance, if it's not directly subject to FICA and payroll tax, that's a different classification, and so that may save you from the headaches that Don is describing here. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that, Don.
Also,
All right.
Nate, you talked about it last week about the overtime too. So overtime is part of the big beautiful bill. So some changes is going to come about on that big beautiful bill on overtime. So you got a lot of this stuff. That's why Nate was saying it's good to make sure you're with a payroll company or payroll experts that know, hey, this is going to affect your business. You might think about this and think about that.
Yeah,
And
and that said, when you are with a payroll company and they send you their newsletter, don't just kick it off to the delete or the box. You don't think it's going to matter to you. Make sure that you're reading those, because like Ian just said, there's new tax provisions coming in that are going to affect your employees, and they'll affect you as well. So it's important for us to be mindful and really just educated. Even if we're not handling the back end of the payroll service, where the compliance piece is being handled by the payroll provider, it's so important for us to understand the front end of all these changes and how they affect our employees.
Don, I want to thank you for sharing too. Again, staying compliant. Once those audits and the IRS come, you want to make sure you are ready and have all of your information together. And when I tell people that's starting out and starting a business, I say you need to have a team around you. You need to have a good lawyer. You need to have an accountant or a payroll person, an accountant or bookkeeper. You need to build a team because your main job is to go out there and make the money, because you won't have all of the skills to do all of the things that you need to have a successful building. April,
100%.
yes, April, can some put me in contact with assistance on payroll? Are you in Illinois, April? Okay, yes, Illinois. Okay. I'm not here. I should have said this in the beginning. I'm not a my disclaimer is I'm not an expert on payroll. Um, the company that I refer everyone to in Illinois, it's called Payroll Central, and I'm not getting paid from them or anything, but I just feel that the lady that I started out with, she's been very helpful on some stuff. And they are located in O'Fallon, Illinois. Yeah, that's right at the tip of in O'Fallon, across from the IHOP. Um, or that's also she QuickBooks. You can do QuickBooks, and that's one of the options that they have is QuickBooks Payroll. Um, Again, you need to make sure everything is set up in there correctly. Make sure that you have it where you're having your taxes come out and all of that. So if you want to do it, yes, QuickBooks is an option. Um, but like Nate just was saying, it's good because payroll companies, they are versed on all of the requirements and compliances that you need. Yes, April, you should talk to someone. It costs nothing to talk and ask questions. Because you want to make sure what you're starting off, you want to make sure you start off on the right foot. And one of the things we talked about, sometimes you're gonna get in that you're gonna get in a bind where you might be like, I need to hold back taxes to pay the rent for my office space. So yes, you need to talk that out with somebody before you really get deep into your company and everything, starting it off and everything. Again, because you don't want to be worrying about all of this. You want to make sure that you're out there going after the contracts, going after whatever to make sure that the business is starting. And you're starting somebody on a W-9 today, they're a contractor, right? Yes. Okay. So did you make sure they're not going to really be an employee? Because again, you want to make sure you're doing that employee versus contractor compliance. Okay. Okay.
And
All right.
and there somewhere online there's like a there's a
It's like
check.
a 19. I tried to find it. It was like
It's
a
21's. Yeah, there's a 21 point checklist that was on the IRS's
yes.
website.
Yes,
They've
yeah.
actually removed it now, and they've listed behavioral and financial
Huh.
controls. So at the same time, those two have a similar feel. It's actually the states, the IRS's regulations are actually lighter than
Mhm.
generally the states are. And so the IRS is, they want their FICA, they want their FUTA, their federal unemployment tax. But the states, they want their SUTA, they want their state unemployment tax even more. So the states have actually placed an even heavier burden on the business owner by asking for, hey, does your contractor have a website? Do they have their own business cards? What kind of agreement have you signed with them? And so they go into even more depth than the IRS does. And sometimes these things aren't available. Like for some contractors, maybe they don't have their own website, maybe they don't have their own business cards. But it's important to know, especially the states of Illinois, and if you employ in Missouri as well, what you're up against if the state does come in for an audit, so that you're prepared to answer those questions at least intelligently and say, hey, you know what, I know what these compliance pieces are. However, in this situation, this particular contractor, I've asked for these items and they just don't have them, but at least you've documented it. And that goes so far with an auditor.
And he just mentioned the FUTA unemployment. Well, I didn't talk about this, but I've seen somebody ask a business in Illinois for an audit for their unemployment. So again, that's one of the things you have to think about when you're trying to do payroll on your own. You have the federal taxes, the state taxes, the unemployment, and all of that. So you have to know all of this stuff.
I can't hear you, Ann.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
The best thing to do is to have that separate payroll account, put the gross amount over there and the taxes that the company owes, and forget about it. And forget about it, because that is, you have to get in the a rhythm of doing that, instead of thinking, oh, I need to take some money out and put aside to pay the rent. Okay. I know we hammer down on compliance, but that is one of the things that could really make or break your business. Again, get you a team that can help you with it, and you go out and make the money. As Trinice would say, go make your coins. Okay, Yolanda, next one. Do we stay on there too long, Yolanda?
No, my
Oh,
computer's just acting slow. I don't know what's going on. Let me
okay.
try something else. Hold on. There we go.
Okay. Payroll efficiency with automation. We talked about efficiencies on operations last couple of weeks ago. So when we talk about payroll automation, you'll have speed and accuracy improvements. You can integrate this with your HR and your time tracking. You can have access with cloud-based access to employee can look at their paychecks. That's one of the ways, again, we talked about efficiency. If you are not printing out W-2s and you can have them to go on a site where it's cloud-based, then they're able to pick their W-2s on an annual basis, and you don't have to worry about mailing stuff out and none of that. And then we also have lower error rates. That way, people, if you're not entering in time, you can have it integrated, your time clock and all of that integrated. And so all you have to do is do your reports, look at your hours, and then send it to your payroll side. Some of the time tracking, I know people may ask about this. I'm helping out a company and we use a software company. Again, all of these companies that I'm saying, it's not a commercial for them or anything. So you just think about it. It's called When I Work, and you basically can it's free up into a certain amount of employee time tracking. You can put your schedule in. Then the employees could clock in and clock out, and then it also have what's called geo tracking. If you want them to only be able to clock in 5 minutes and a certain distance from their workplace, all of that is integrated in some of these time tracking systems. I'm not sure if QuickBooks, I know they do time tracking, but I don't know about the geo fencing or whatever. It's geo tracking. Um, Geo tracking. I know another one is called Connect Team. Um, but if you find something where you can track you can have a terminal or a tablet at the work spot where they come in and they can clock in there. You can have it where they can clock in on their phones. It's different things that's out here. And again, it's all of this is cloud based, and you don't have to worry about paper and all of that, because then you'll have everything. They can log onto a system, get their own W-2s. You can also, again, when it says integration with HR, this is what you can call onboarding, where they can also fill out their W-4s, any the I-9s, any type of paperwork. That's what a lot of companies are going to. They'll say, okay, you're gonna onboard, and we're gonna send you the link and everything. So if you get that payroll automation, that will be a good thing. Next slide. Okay, key takeaways. Your payroll accuracy builds trust and compliance. You understand and apply correct withholdings. Benefits integration is essential. You want to stay compliant with the laws and your audits, and your automation will equal efficiency plus fewer errors. Again, payroll is everybody want to know when I'm gonna get paid. I didn't work, make sure my check is right. So again, if you're able to like April asked, should she talk to somebody? It would be good for people that are just starting out to get some good advice, because again, when the IRS comes, they're coming, and you want to make sure that you're ready. Next slide. I think it's questions. There we go. We have Q&A. Anybody have questions they would like to ask? It was one more slide, Yolanda. Oh, I lost her. That's okay. There, okay. One more slide. We can go to the last slide. So there's some resources that are available. You got your IRS payroll resources, Department of Labor compliance guides, and the payroll software providers. Again, you have QuickBooks, Gusto, ADP, Paychecks. I would like to say on those nationals like ADP and Paychecks, they'll get you in there at a low price. So you also have to make sure you build a relationship with them. Let them know that you're a small company, and they will assign someone to you. And you just need to make sure you build that relationship and let them know how much you can afford on your payroll processing. Again, the IRS is a good website. I know people are scared of the IRS, and if you go on the IRS and just in their search, they will give you information about anything that we've been talking about, questions that you have. They used to produce different things called publications, and they have a whole thing about payroll withholding. I want to say it's publication 15 or something like that. They used to print that stuff, but they have it all online now. You don't have to do all of that. And again, if you have any questions, I know we're talking about the state of Illinois. You can go to the different state departments of labor, and they will give you information on different guides and stuff. Anybody have any questions? I hope we didn't scare you, because as I said before, everybody is scared of the IRS. But just ask questions and make sure um, you are in compliance. And if you need help from somebody, just ask questions. Again, Justine Peterson is here. They are here to connect you with the right people. Yolanda, you have anything?
No, excuse me. No, that was good. Thank you. And I just wanted to let everyone know I did send you guys the links from a prior webinar so you can catch up as we keep on going through this series. So thank you all for coming out. I will see you all next week, same time, same JP channel. Oh,
Thanks,
Nate, you had something to say?
everybody. Great presentation, Ann. Thank you so much.
All righty.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Can we get some hearts for Ann? That was amazing.
Right, raise
Thank
the
you.
roof.
Yeah.